So I think, as you rightly say, numbers is one thing and probably easier to achieve. What is much more difficult is changing the culture, particularly of an organization that's 130 years old and has a kind of an ingrained culture in it. So we think about it in a very holistic way. We've actually managed to take the intake of senior leaders, women senior leaders, from 20% a year ago to 51% this year. So that shows you what you can do. But for me now, it's about how do you build a sustainable culture where you can attract and retain people effectively forever. So we do that in a holistic way, both top-down and bottom-up. I'm a big believer in bottom-up. I'm a big believer in going to ask people what they have to say and actually listen to them. I think leaders are quite good at not listening to people. So it's a blend of both. I think it is important that there's real commitment from the top. So at my executive committee, it's the first item on every agenda meeting that we have. It used to be the last, and when you get to the last, you're always late and in a hurry, so we've made it the first. We've done all kinds of things like ask the whole of the leadership to go through unconscious bias training, because we all have unconscious bias, men and women. We've got reciprocal mentoring arrangements where we have all of the executive committee paired up with a woman who is from a different part of the world, a different culture, and a different part of the business, who are true mentors of each other. This is not a kind of a mentor-mentee arrangement. But I think, to me, two of the really critical pieces are we have a series of leadership principles at De Beers, which are very simple, very powerful statements that we ask people to think about as they go about their day-to-day jobs. There's 6 of them, but 2 are really powerful. One we call engage diverse views, and the other one listen to understand. And I've actually learned more just shutting up and listening to people than almost any other part of this. And I think the other part that is tremendously important to us is to create safe spaces for people to talk up, to come together and talk up. We started just with women's groups. We've now got quite a lot of men-only groups, and there's some men who find this a little bit uncomfortable, so we need to hear from them. We need to bring them along on the journey with us. So to me, there's no one-size-fits-all solution. It's really important that the culture is there and that people see that the leadership believe in it, but they also see tangible results, and there are tangible results developing across the group.
Wonderful. And what are you doing to make sure that women get a full range of roles in operations and finance?
Sorry, say again?
What are you doing to make sure that women are getting a full range of roles in operations and finance?
Yeah, so part of the business is a mining business, and it's these are areas in which there are less women graduates as there are now. For us, it's therefore really important to create the kind of culture that we can go out and capture effectively as many of those graduates as we can. But we're also investing a lot of money in STEM education, in fact, with some of the champions here, Waterloo and places like that in Canada, and we invest an enormous amount in communities and female micro-entrepreneurs around our mines. Finance in cities like London, I've got a very strong set of rules where we have no recruiting unless amongst the short list of interviewees you have a woman, and we have no recruiting unless amongst the recruiting panel is a woman, and that's across all disciplines, engineering, anything. So we are really going about it systematically from end to end across the group, mining, exploration, all the way to retail to try and change this. But as you rightly say, it's about building a culture where people believe they're free to speak up and that they'll be heard if they speak up.
Picking up on what you said about safe spaces, I understand that recently De Beers created breastfeeding rooms outside of the mines, so that way employees who work in the female employees who work in the mines have access to breastfeeding. Is that true?
Yeah, that's a great example of actually some of the progress. So at one of our mines, Venetia mine in Limpopo province, which is in the northern part of South Africa in a very poor area, not because of anything other than that we'd created the conditions for people to feel free to talk up. After we'd launched this, a women's group formed. And one of the first things they did was go to the general manager of the mine and ask for a specific, safe, comfortable breastfeeding room. Now, you might think that's a bit obvious, but actually in some of these mines in the distant parts of the world, it's not all that obvious. And for them, it's a very courageous thing to do, because a mine manager is traditionally a male, is traditionally someone who's focused on results and nothing else. And I think the really pleasing thing for me is that the culture has changed to the point where women were able to have this conversation. The mine manager actually was enthusiastic about it. Not only is it in Venetia now, we've taken it all over the rest of the group. And I think to what Queen Rania said earlier, empowerment is contagious. To me, this is a small thing, but I'm really looking forward to seeing more of these initiatives as women become more and more comfortable speaking up in mines and places like that. So to me, this is a sort of a tip of the iceberg. But hopefully by next year, we'll have much better stories to tell like that.
And are there breastfeeding rooms in the corporate offices as well?
There are.
Fantastic.
Of course there are, and we are enhancing them as we move to another office in the near future.